It's all in the detail. The professional's guide to installing Altro safety flooring. The aim of this program is to demonstrate the many aspects which are included in the installation of Altro safety flooring, which is referred to throughout as ASF. The detail and finishing of the installation will be determined by the specification and types of area in which the material is to be installed. Fitting cove former. Before commencing the laying of the floor covering, a cove former must be fitted to the perimeter of the installation to support the flooring when it's turned up the wall. There are two methods for achieving this. One is by fitting the Altro One Cove system, which is demonstrated separately in this program, or two, by installing the standard 38mm cove former, which you'll see here. Remove the cove former from the box and place it on a piece of hardboard. Apply a contact adhesive to the back of the cove former and to the corresponding junction of the base of the wall and floor. When the adhesive is touch dry, fit the cove former firmly into position, accurately mitring the corners. Fitting Altro safety flooring to wall finishings. The top edge of the ASF can be finished in several different ways, and again this will depend upon the specifications and the type of area being installed. Fitting of C7 capping strip. The most common way of finishing the top of the self-cove, where spillages to the wall do not occur, is to fit the material into the Altro C7 capping strip. To install this strip, mark the required height to the wall surface with a pencil or chalk line. Then apply contact adhesive to the back of the capping strip and the corresponding section of the wall. Once the adhesive is touch dry, firmly position the capping strip into place, mitering the internal corners and wrapping the capping around the external corners. To fit the external corners, cut a section out of the back of the capping and place a separate piece of ASF under the capping. Fitting to glazed wall tiles using Altro C8 capping strip. In areas where moisture spillage could penetrate the top edge of the cove, such as shower and industrial kitchens, a watertight finish must be achieved. Where glazed wall tiles are being fitted, The wall tiler should install the Altro C8 cap tile strip prior to the installation of the floor finish. The C8 strip has a backplate which fits behind the wall tiles, thus enabling you to fit the flooring into the cap tile strip to form a watertight finish. Fitting to Altro wall surfaces. Where Altro white rock wall cladding is being installed to a shower area, the ASF should be fitted first. The white rock will then overlap the top edge of the flooring by a minimum of 50 mm and be sealed with an Altro clear mastic to stop any moisture penetrating behind the flooring. In other areas where Altro white rock has been installed, the walling contractor will have installed an Altro transition strip. The flooring should be cut and fitted to the backplate and then sealed into place with the cover strip. Installing Altro safety flooring. Once the cove former and finishing strip have been fitted in place, you can start to install the flooring. Measure the area from the top of the finishing strip and set out the sheet layout of the whole area. Where possible, it's always best to lay the first sheet one width away from the wall. Measure out and mark 2 points on the floor, equally from the top edge of the finishing strip, allowing approximately 25 mm for wastage of the sheet that is going to be self-coved. The first sheet can be rolled out, positioned on the marks and be adhered to the subfloor. This will act as a guide for the positioning of the sheet that will be coved to the wall. Installation temperature. In order to install ASF correctly, we recommend a steady temperature of between 14 and 27 degrees C is maintained for at least 48 hours prior to and 24 hours after completion of the installation. There are two types of blades that we recommend for cutting Altro safety flooring. The concave blade, which you can use to score or cut the material, and the hook blade, which will cut through the material. Place this sheet into position, overlapping the first sheet by approximately 15 millimeters. You should then cut in the joint. This can be done by either using a hook blade to follow the edge of the bottom sheet, or by using the edge of the top sheet as a guide. Score the surface with the concave blade, then cut through the sheet using the hook blade. The cutting in of this sheet will make it easier to guide the sheet back into position once it's been adhered. Application of the adhesive. Mark the back of the sheet where the contact adhesive needs to be applied and turn back one half of the sheet. Apply the contact adhesive to the cove former and wall using a brush. The contact adhesive should also be applied to the corresponding section of the back of the flooring that's going to be self-coved, using a small serrated spreader. Leave the contact adhesive to dry whilst applying the main adhesive to the floor area. In this instance, we are using Altro Fix 19, which is a two-part water-resistant polyurethane adhesive. Open the container and remove the catalyst. This should be thoroughly mixed into the main container with a slow-speed drill and paddle attachment. Once mixed, it should be applied to the subfloor as soon as possible, using a small serrated 1x4mm notched trowel. Place back the first half of the sheet into the adhesive, following the edge of the previously adhered sheet. The second half of this sheet can now be turned back and the process repeated. When adhering ASF with Altro Fix 19, the flooring should not be rolled. Expel all trapped air with the use of a flat wooden or perspex trowel and try to limit the trafficking of the floor while the adhesive is still fresh. Fitting of Altro safety flooring, cutting around pipes etc. Once the whole sheet has been adhered, you can fit the ASF to the cove former and the wall. It's essential to start at the base and fit the material onto the cove former and then up the wall. Before you start cutting in the mitres, you should cut around any pipe or obstruction along the coving, which is preventing the material from being fitted to the cove. Cutting of internal mitres. There are various different methods of cutting the internal mitres. However, experience has shown that the following will produce the most consistent and accurate finish. Fold the ASF into the corner to create a butterfly shape, pushing in the base to meet at the junction of the cove former. The point at which you cut to is crucial to the success of the mitre. To find this point, parallel the tops of the two edges of the material, and the point where they meet is the point you need to cut to. Make a small cut at the base of the mitre. You now need to turn the knife around and make the cut to the top of the material where the two parallels meet. Once the cut has been made, fold in one side and cut away the excess until you have a perfect fit. Then, repeat this on the other side. Cutting of external mitres. To fit the external mitre, cut down inside the line of the column until you reach the top of the mitre, then cut outside the line. The surplus material will then fold back to meet the back mitre. To cut the external mitre, bring the knife down the side of the wall to the top of the cove. down the mitre and onto the floor. Now cut in the back mitre and the section that is required to take the makeout piece. All makeout sections throughout the installation should be kept uniform. When you fit the makeout piece, take a separate piece of ASF coated with contact adhesive. Place this into position and cut in the back mitre. It's important to cut between the wall and the ASF that you've already fitted, as this will form a natural V-section to take the weld. Finishing at door architrave. In order to eliminate an open end at the junction of the wall and any door architrave, you need to taper the cove former so that the floor can be finished neat and flush to the architrave. To achieve this, measure and mark the centre of the cove former approximately 200 millimeters from the end. Make 2 cuts from this mark to the outer edges of the end of the cove and remove this section. To release the tension in the cove former, make a cut either side of the starting point. The former will then fold together, reducing itself over the distance of 200 millimeters. Adhere the former into position. Then fit the ASF tightly onto the cove and cut it in to form a neat finish to the architrave. Once fitted, it's recommended that all architraves are sealed with Altromastic. Hot welding of internal and external mitres. When all of the Altro safety flooring has been fitted, the internal and external mitres should be welded first. For easier starting, turn the speed nozzle at the end of the welding gun to the up position, or use the Altro coving speed nozzle, which is specially designed to weld mitres. Cut off the required length of welding rod and feed the rod through the speed nozzle, slowly bringing the gun down the mitre and onto a spatula placed at the bottom, which will give a nice neat finish at the end of the weld. Leave the rod to cool down before cutting and trimming it with the round-shaped router blade. Blend in the edge using the same tool. On the external mitre, you will need to groove the cove section of the mitre, and also make sure that the top section has been cut to form a V, so the welding rod can be heated into it. Groove and weld the back mitre and makeout section, then leave the rod to cool before cutting and trimming. On the external mitre, use the square-shaped router blade, or alternatively, use the concave blade to trim the weld. The weld can then be blended to the ASF with the round router blade or a blending roller. Grooving and welding of main floor seams. All joints in the main floor area should have been cut in to form a neat, tight joint. Before welding, you should groove these joints using a U-shape or bar groover or an automatic grooving machine fitted with a diamond tip blade. Place the straight edge along the side of the joint and groove approximately 3/4 of the depth of the flooring. To weld the joints on the floor, you first need to weld the self-cove section in the same manner as the mitres. Once this has been carried out, you can move on to the floor joints. Set the temperature of the welding gun slightly higher than when welding the mitres. It's always best to carry out a test weld on a spare piece of ASF to make sure your temperature setting is suitable for the product and conditions. The speed at which you should travel should be at between 2 to 3 meters per minute in order to obtain the correct fusion of the rod to the floor covering. Leave the rod to cool before cutting and trimming with the sledge and spatula. Welding of Altro Marine T20. When welding the textured surface of Altro Marine 20, the welding rod should be trimmed off using an Altro T20 chisel, which is designed specially to the width of the welding rod to avoid damaging the surface of the Marine 20. Applying Altromastic sealant. Altromastic sealant is supplied in colours to match the ASF and is designed to seal pipes, toilet pans and door frames, for example, which have been cut through the flooring systems. Cut off the end of the cartridge. Screw on the end nozzle and cut the top of the nozzle to allow a bead of approximately 3 mm to be applied. Place the cartridge into the skeleton gun. Where necessary, mask up the areas which require sealant. Apply the sealant, and to achieve a smooth finish, dip your finger into water or washing up liquid before smoothing the mastic into position. Drain and channel outlets. All drain outlets or channels must be designed to prevent moisture from penetrating under the flooring system. To install the ASF to this clamping outlet, remove the grill cover and clamping rim before installing the flooring. Apply the water-resistant adhesive to the subfloor and into the top section of the outlet. Place the flooring back over the outlet and cut a small circle in the centre of the drain. Carefully enlarge the circle and cut around the clamping rim screw holes. Replace the rim, clamping the flooring into position. Replace the cover grill and weight the perimeter with sandbags until the adhesive is set. Access covers. In order to obtain the correct finish, all manhole or access covers within the floor area must be designed with clamping or weldable edges. This weldable access cover is rebaited to the thickness of the flooring. The material is fitted tightly to the edges, then grooved and hot welded to the PVC insert, both inside and outside of the cover, providing a neat and effective watertight seal between the flooring and the access cover. Alternative method of cutting internal and external mitres. Some international markets require their internal and external mitres to be cut and welded at the side of the mitre. This can be carried out with or without a cove former. However, it's preferable to use a cove former to support the floor against any possible damage in industrial type installations. The method being demonstrated is without a cove former, and it's therefore very important to warm the material so it can be tightly formed into the junction of the wall and floor. Once this has been achieved, the external mitre can be cut using the special design template. The material will then fold around the corner, forming a natural V-section. You can now work your way along the coving to the internal mitres. Again, make sure it's tightly fitted into the wall and floor. To fit the internal mitre, cut from the base of the corner to the top of the material at 45 degrees. Fold in the rest of the material and cut away the surplus. Make sure the material is fitted tightly into and around the corner before cutting it into the angle. Once the internal mitres have been cut in, you can fit the external section by taking a separate piece of flooring cut to the shape of the template. Groove the back, which will allow it to bend round the mitre. Fit and cut it into place. The mitres can then be grooved before welding. Apply masking tape and use the spatula to avoid scorching the capping seal. Allow the rod to cool before trimming with the router blades. Finally, blend in the rod with the bullet nozzle or round-shaped router blade. Altro One Cove. Altro One Cove is a modular system made up of 5 components which enable you to self-cove ASF to most types of wall finishings without the use of contact adhesive. It also provides the added benefit of mitre cover plates, which can be used as an alternative to hot welding internal and external mitres. Altro One Cove C50. The C50 section is a 100mm high rigid cove with an integral flexible capping strip. It is supplied with a water-resistant tape fitted to the front and back of the product. The C50 sections can be used on their own by cutting and mitering the corners, or alternatively in conjunction with the internal and external mitre kits. Altro One Cove C51. The C51 section is a rigid cove without a flexible capping. It is supplied with a water-resistant tape fitted to the front and back of the product. The C51 can be used with an alternative Altro finishing strip. The section can also be cut and mitered or used in conjunction with the internal and external mitre kits. Altro One Cove C52. The C52 section is a flexible capping strip which is supplied with a water-resistant tape fitted to the back of the strip. This section can be used where you require the self-coving to be higher than 100 millimeters. Internal and external mitre kits. Internal and external mitre kits are for use with the C50 and C51 coving sections to provide support and to enable the cover plates to be fitted as an alternative to hot welding the mitres. The first profile being demonstrated is the C50 without the internal and external mitre kits. Using a mitre box, cut the coving to the required angle. Remove the release paper from the back of the foam tape and place the coving firmly into position. The flooring can be adhered to the coving by removing the release paper from the tape on the front of the cove and fitting the ASF into position. Once fitted, the mitres can be hot welded in the normal manner. This method of installing the C50 gives you the conventional capping and coving finish without the use of a contact adhesive. In areas where a different capping strip, such as Altro C8 cap tile strip, has been fitted in conjunction with glazed wall tiles, you'll need to fit the C51 profile. This is designed without a capping section, so the ASF can be fitted over this and up into the cap tile strip. The C51 section can also be used in conjunction with the C52 capping strip, where the height of the self-cove is more than 100 millimeters. Mark the wall to the required height and fit the C52 capping profile by removing the release paper from the back of the tape and fitting it into position. You will then need to apply Altro double-sided tape to the wall section between the top of the cove and the capping strip. Fit the ASF to the cove and cut and fit it into the capping strip. Internal and external mitre kits. Remove the sections of the mitre kits from the bag and fit the capping section to the top using the double-sided tape provided. Also, fit the double-sided pads to the back and the tapes to the front. Mark the height of the coving to the wall and the position of the mitres, and fit the internal and external mitres into position. Measure and cut the C50 coving to the required length. Where the coving abuts the corner mitres, you will need to remove a small section of the foam tape from the back of the coving. Make sure the wall surface is clean and dry. Some surfaces may require priming or the addition of Altromastic seal to improve the bond. Remove the release paper from the front of the cove and apply the flooring adhesive to the subfloor. Place the flooring into position and cut away the surplus material. Fit the material firmly onto the coving by starting at the bottom and working up the coving. Cut in the internal mitres. Take a separate piece of material and fit the makeout section. All joints on the floor should be grooved and welded before the mitre cover plates are fitted. The cover plates are designed with a stability pin, which fits into the location hole in the corner mitre. Open up the mitre to locate the hole. Then cut the cover plate to the required height. Apply the matching colour Altromastic to the mitres or back of the cover plate and bed the plate into position, squeezing out the surplus Altromastic. Finally, use the Altromastic clean-up wipes to remove the surplus Altromastic. applying Altroproof Surface DPM. The biggest cause of failure in installing a floor covering is due to the presence of moisture in the subfloor. It's therefore important that you check that the subfloor onto which you are installing the ASF meets the relevant moisture requirement. In the UK, the recommended limits are that the relative humidity within the subfloor is below 75% RH, when tested using a hygrometer in accordance with BS 8203. If these requirements are not met, Altro produce the Altroproof range of surface damp-proof membranes, which can be applied to the damp subfloor to allow you to install the floor covering. This chart shows the relative humidity in the subfloor up to which Altroproof can be applied. Altroproof Duo is a two-part, two-coat epoxy base system, which can be applied on subfloors up to 97% relative humidity. Altroproof Solo is a two-part single-coat epoxy base system, which can be applied onto subfloors up to 95% relative humidity. Altroproof Eco is a one-part water-based two-coat product, which can be used up to 90% relative humidity. These products can be applied directly onto a clean, smooth subfloor or a moisture-tolerant smoothing compound such as Ardex. The two-part systems should be thoroughly mixed with a drill and paddle attachment and be applied with a flat trowel or roller. Once the relevant number of coats has been applied and allowed to dry, the flooring can be adhered directly to the subfloor using the appropriate adhesive. Should additional subfloor preparation be required, please request the relevant data sheets from Altro Floors. Installing Altro Everlay. An alternative method of overcoming moisture levels within the subfloor is to apply Altro Everlay. Altro Everlay A is a 1.2 mm thick, 2 metre wide sheet, which is loose laid to the subfloor to protect the adhesive from moisture within the subfloor. The sheets of Everlay should be laid in the same direction as the floor covering, but ensuring that the joints do not correspond with those of the floor covering. Make sure the existing subfloor is smooth and flat. Roll out the material, butting the joints and cutting in the perimeter. The surface material can be straight laid and sealed with Altromastic. If self-coved, the cove former should be adhered to the wall and surface of the Everlay. The ASF can then be adhered to the Everlay using a two-part water-resistant adhesive. If a water-based, pressure-sensitive acrylic has been specified, the joints in the Everlay should be fitted with Altro Everlay tape to protect the adhesive from moisture ingress from the subfloor. Once the floor has been fully adhered to the everlay, it should be grooved and hot welded in the normal manner. Cutting and design. Altro safety flooring can be used in many applications of design and lends itself well to the creation of intricate inlays whilst retaining its integrity as an impervious safety floor. If you require any further information on the product or detailing demonstrated within this program, please request the relevant data sheet from Altro Floors.